Right then, The Ritual. This will be my spoiler review of the now Netflix film, and I'm just going to say straight up the top, this is the best horror film I've seen in a really, really long time. And it's the best horror film for many reasons, and a normal film can learn from that, I will say this. So, just moving straight into it, this will be a spoiler review. So I'm going to get into, obviously, kind of what the film is. And I will go kind of shot by shot. I know a lot of people don't really like that, because they don't feel that a review should have the plot in it and all of that nonsense. But it's spoilers, and I want to go through it and kind of talk the scenes and why I enjoyed it. And to do that, I have to discuss, obviously, the scenes. So what is this film about? Well, it's not your average horror film, and you get that from the outset. You open on a group of lads just chit-chatting, and what is so good about this opening is you get a real sense that these people are actually friends, which you don't often get in movies. And I really, really liked that. There is chemistry there. It's your average group of lads, but it really, really works. They're all British, and basically they meet up every so often to have kind of drinks and then organise a lads' holiday. A reunion of sorts, basically. And it really worked. For an opening to a horror film, this is kind of everything that you want, because you do actually start to give a crap about these people. And at breakneck speed, one of them dies. I know I did warn you about all spoilers, but yeah, my God, one of them dies in a really horrific way. And it's really important because it's not related to the horror that you see further down the line, but it's important because it shows the mental state of one of the people that witnessed the murder. And it shows you that this guy is haunted throughout the film by what he's seen. It's a deep-seated tragedy in this man's life, and he blames himself, but obviously, it can't be helped because of how the death happens. Basically, the guy gets macheted or knifed, and it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, but done in a really, really great way. And now, flash forward, the group of lads, minus one, are on a hiking trip in Sweden, obviously in kind of remembrance of the tragic death that partook their group. And this is kind of where things start to really open up and start to kind of take a turn for the worst. They're trudging through the hills and the valleys. One of them ruptures their meniscus, or believes they've ruptured their meniscus, and you get a real sense of the dynamic between this group since the tragedy has happened. The man that witnessed the murder is kind of being blamed by his friends for not helping, and he's kind of an outcast, but he's not. He's still trying to be brought back in the group, and it's a really nice dynamic between everyone. And then we go into a forest, because obviously this man has ruptured his meniscus, and this is where things start to really move up to the horror aspect of the film, because before that it's character development, which was really important. And although the pacing of this film is quick, that character development and that slow pace at the start is ultra important, not only for you to actually be engaged in this film and feel something for the characters, but also for the plot further down the line. So because this guy ruptured his meniscus, we go into the forest, and you would have seen it from the trailers, but they find some dead ox thing hanging from a tree. I don't know whether it's an ox, it might be a moose, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. So he's hanging from a tree, this creature's been brutally gutted, and it's quite horrendous. So obviously this is where things start to move a lot. And what they've done really well here in this film is bring things to a really enclosed space, but without feeling forced, because prior to that they're on these massive open top mountains, and it's a really beautiful setting, but it's really open as well, and it's not very claustrophobic. But the moment they go within the forest, that's where everything starts to kind of bring it in. It feels claustrophobic, it feels enclosed. And I watched this film with headphones in, and it has a really great sound mixing. If you watch this film with headphones, you'll really, really appreciate it. The use of sound and how they silence things, but then bring in loud other sounds here and there to really get a sense of the claustrophobia is fantastic. It's really, really good. So after they see this ox thing hanging in the tree, they move forward and they see, an abandoned building. And yes, it is a massive age-old trope. And there's a lot of tropes in this film, but they're done in a unique way. And you'll kind of get that when you see this film. It does make sense. So they go into the house because it's starting to rain. They said they need to set up camp for the night. They don't want to pitch the tents, and there's a building there, so why not use it? So they do see some runes on the outskirts of the building. They don't really know what they are. They're not really getting a sense of too much spook at that point in time. They go in the building, they go upstairs, and they see one of the most unnerving statues I've seen in a film in a really long time. And it's unnerving, but there's nothing really to it. It's a bunch of it's like a wicker statue of some idol that obviously is in kind of Norse legend. I need to look it up, and I'm not overly sure whether this is actually a Norse legend or not. I know I have some Swedish people that watch my channel, so you guys can confirm with me. And it's really, really unnerving. And this is where things start to really take it up a notch. And I mean, this is where the horror aspect comes in, basically. So they all fall asleep that night, as you would do, kind of joking around with one another about what they're seeing and doing, and basically calling one another out on the BS of it all. And this is, again, a great display of the dynamic between everyone, and it really, really works. It's fantastic. So they go to sleep, they all have nightmares. But one of them has really unique nightmares, and it's the nightmare of his friend being murdered, basically. And he wakes up through that nightmare outside, marked. And this is the mark of the beast, so to speak. He's been marked because he experiences deep pain, unlike any of his friends. And the others all have varying nightmares to some degree. One wets himself. The other is found upstairs, naked, praying to the idol, the statue, which is, again, a really unnerving shot. And then another is screaming his wife's name because he sees himself being murdered further down the line, but that comes into play obviously later in the film. Now, you don't really know what's going on at this point. You don't know whether it's locals playing tricks on them. You don't know whether there is actually a supernatural element involved. This is why this film is so good. It does keep you guessing to a certain degree, and because you are seeing a lot of the events through the guy who witnessed his friend be murdered through his eyes, you're not overly sure whether a lot of this is hallucinations or not, and this is where this film is really quite good, because it does keep you guessing in that aspect. But not for too long. Oh god, not for too long. You do see a monster, a creature, not straight away, right towards the end, and they keep it on the cusp for a really, really long time. You see bits of it. You see this thing stalking them. Massive, absolutely massive in magnitude, this creature is. It's rustling through the trees, and it's so quick. The way this thing moves and what it does is just unbelievable. This is a real testament to the producers involved in this film. You've got Andy Serkis involved in this film, right? So you know the effects are going to be, they have to be good, because it's Andy Serkis. And I don't know how much involved he was in terms of the producing side of things, but it did win the British Independent Film Award for Best Effects, and you can see why. The effects on this film are incredible. It's a real shame that this movie went to Netflix, because this film could have been seen on the big screen. It should have been seen on the big screen, and it would have been absolutely amazing on the big screen, especially with those speakers and the use of the sound in this film. It would have become such a beautiful experience in the cinema. So anyway, that being said, there is a creature, there is a thing, and it all culminates to the guy who experienced this tragedy basically coming face to face with this thing. All of his friends are murdered, and he survives the whole event, but it is done in such a beautiful way. Yes, there are so many tropes in this film. Yes, it's not wholly original, but the cinematography, the sound mixing, the soundtrack, the effects, the creature design, and just how it culminates, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I'm not overly sure that they could have done this film any more justice if they tried. The only thing, and there are some gripes to this film, because I've talked you through step by step what the film is, what I liked during all of this process. But what I didn't like about this film is, yes, it culminates, and yes, they show you the creature at the end, but the effects on the creature could have been a bit better. They really could have. The design of the creature itself is amazing and really unique. It's been such a long time since I've seen a horror creature and gone, I really like that. That is very, very good. But that creature was fantastic. It's just the effects a little bit here and there were a bit off. But on a whole, I can't fault it. I absolutely can't. The pacing feels great, and then it does rush towards the third act, and that third act is very fast. But again, it's quite a mild nitpick on this film. On a whole, it's great. The acting is solid. The effects on a whole, absolutely great. Where this movie won the award for best effects, I can only imagine it's the effects where the man has his flashbacks of the murder that he witnessed of his friend. Because those effects interspersed with Scandinavian woodland is so good. Is absolutely so good. But yeah, I mean, look, I cannot recommend this movie enough. I've seen 3 horror movies this year. I've seen The Winchester, which was absolutely balls. I hated that movie with a passion. It was so boring, so generic, so heavily reliant on jump scares. I've seen Hellraiser Judgment, which was made on a budget of, I believe, $500,000, which is absolutely nothing, and a month to film. And I liked it based on, you know, those elements. It was good for those elements. It has massive problems, don't get me wrong. And then I've seen The Ritual. The Ritual is by far the best horror movie of 2018. I'd be very surprised if a movie tops it. But not only that, it is one of the best horror movies I've seen of the past 5 years. And if you've seen this movie, you will agree with me, or you will kind of see where I'm coming from anyway. It's an hour 34, the pacing is solid, it's very, very good pace, but it does rush towards the end. It keeps you involved, it feels claustrophobic, and you feel for these characters. You actually care about these characters, which in a horror movie is so important, but they get it wrong so often. So guys, if you've seen The Ritual, it's on Netflix now, so you should probably go and check it out. Let me know what you thought about it down below in the comment section. If you are familiar with Norse legends, let me know if this creature is inspired by an actual legend. Again, I'd be genuinely interested to know. And if you haven't seen it, are you going to go and check it out? And as always guys, I've been Mr. H, and I will catch you in the comment section.